The big, beautiful bill passed the Senate. It just passed minutes ago. And here's the truth: there is good news and there is bad news for seniors. And when I did my analysis, in fact, it just feels that seniors were left behind in this bill. And the main reason is that seniors were promised two things as part of the big, beautiful bill. The first one was an increase in benefits, and then the second one was no taxes on Social Security. Well, both are not in the bill, but there are some things that were done for seniors, and I'm going to talk about that. And then there's a lot of cuts. Medicaid was gutted, food stamps was gutted, and a lot of benefits that seniors care about have been taken away or severely reduced. And so over the last couple of days, I've been doing lives encouraging you guys to call. And I know that a lot of you called. And if you did, thank you for calling, because even though the bill passed, here's what happened. It was put in vote. They were voting for about 36 hours, really. And it showed the pressure that the Senate was feeling because of all the calls that they were getting from constituents telling them to vote no. And so it came down to they needed 4 votes to be able to really take this off the table. 4 votes would have been enough to sink this bill. And they had 3. They had Susan Collins of Maine, they had Paul Rand of Kentucky, and then they had Senator Tillis of North Carolina, who, by the way, gave a speech that I think everybody should go watch, because he spoke from the heart about how his constituents, 660,000 people in North Carolina, are going to lose Medicaid. And he spoke passionately about why he does not think this bill is right and he's voting no. But so there were 3 of them that were voting no. They needed one more. Well, that fourth was Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And it did appear that she was going to vote no. But here's what happened. They gave her a sweet deal for Alaska, where Alaska was exempted from some of the Medicaid, the deep Medicaid cuts and the deep food stamps cuts that are happening. They made a special exemption for Alaska. And so that was enough for her to vote yes. But the question is that if they are exempting Alaska from some of these deep cuts, why do other states then deserve to have their Medicaid and food stamps and other benefits taken away? So that's something I'm going to talk about in a second. But here's the 5 things I want to talk about today. The first one is that seniors were left out of this bill. No taxes on Social Security never went into the bill and never passed. And increase in your benefits, the benefit increase that was promised, also did not happen. My name is Kwame Kwade. I am a government benefit expert. For 15 years, I've been helping seniors get the retirement benefits they deserve. If you are new here, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Do me a favor, go into the comments and let me know your city and your state. If you've been watching my channel for a while, welcome back. I'm glad you're here also. And we have a lot to cover, so I want you to hang around, because I'm going to unpack what this bill contains, because they've added a lot more things since the last time we talked. And most importantly, how does this affect seniors? Because a lot of the things that we were expecting to happen did not happen. Well, the bill is now going to go to the House of Representatives, because remember, the House passed their version of it. They took it to the Senate. The Senate made a lot of changes and added a lot more. So now the House have 2 choices. They can either pass the Senate bill as is, or they can then try to reconcile the two and pass the reconciliation bill between the two. So that's what's happening. So we have one more opportunity to really push back and sink this bill because here's the truth. If you look at the bill as it stands, it is the largest wealth transfer from the middle class and the low income population to the rich. And I have a graph that I want to show you that highlights why we need to continue to fight this, even if it looks like they are bent on getting it done. The House of Representatives is going to get it, and then they will have to pass it. They want to pass it before July the 4th, which is a few days from now. But let's look at what I'm talking about regarding, taking money from the poor and low income population and giving it to the rich. So this is the graph I want to share with you. If you look at the tax cuts that were given to people making over $500,000, majority of them is financed through Medicaid cuts. So if for every $1,100 somebody gets in tax cut, making over $500,000, 715 came from cuts to Medicaid, and the rest came from cuts to food stamps. Now, there is another graph that I want to show you that also highlights this big gap of taking money from the poor and giving it to the rich. Well, if you look at the bill, they are cutting $1.3 trillion from food stamps and Medicaid and people that are on healthcare through the Affordable Care Act marketplace. Well, if you look at the tax cut that they're giving to people making over 500,000, which I just showed you. Remember, I showed you this chart where for every $1,100, this is where they're taking it from. Well, this highlights the problem even clearer, because 1.3 trillion in cuts to Medicaid and food stamps is directly being put in the pocket of people making over $500,000. That is the bill in essence. But here's one thing that is actually more disturbing about all of this, is because even with these deep cuts, that we're seeing from, Medicaid and Medicaid and all that, it is not enough to pay for how much money they need to do this. And so they have to borrow money in order to do this. So here is the chart that I wanted to show you. What is the low income and middle class getting out of this tax cut? If you're in the bottom 20%, you're getting $70. But if you're in the top 1%, you're getting $62,000. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. This bill, it's the biggest transfer, taking money from people who need it the most and giving it to people, disproportionately giving it to the rich. Now, if you're a senior watching this, you're thinking, well, how does this affect me? What does this all mean for me? Well, a couple of things. The first thing is that in terms of tax cut, if you make less than $25,000, you're getting zero. You're actually losing money. If you're making between 25 and 53,000, you are losing a little bit. It is if you make more than $55,000, then you're going to see about $500 in tax cuts. So for a lot of seniors, the tax cut that they are talking about and making a lot of noise about does not help you. That is why when the president said he was going to do no taxes on Social Security, a lot of seniors got excited. Well, this is the biggest opportunity that they had to make that happen, because they were using the reconciliation process. What does that mean? It means that they can pass the bill with a simple majority in the Senate. Why is that important? Well, without the reconciliation process, they need 60 votes in the Senate, and the Democrats would have been able to block this. And so they use the reconciliation process. And what does that mean? It means that everything that they put in the bill has to be related to the budget. Either they are spending money or they are saving money. Those are the two things they can have in a reconciliation bill: spending money or saving money. So that is what they did, is that they put in everything that they thought was their pet projects, but left out seniors, pretty much left seniors out of it. What does this mean? Well, the president promised no taxes on Social Security. That is not in the bill. That did not make it. But in exchange, they put in a 6,000 tax deduction. So if you're a senior citizen and you make up to 75,000, you can get a tax deduction on your taxes. So you don't get immediate relief right now. There is nothing in this bill that puts money in your pocket right now. Nothing. And the bill is $5 trillion, and nothing in it puts money in seniors' pocket. You have to wait after you file your taxes, and then you get a tax deduction. Now, here's the problem with that. First of all, it's not an immediate help. But second, a tax deduction. What about those who do not file taxes because they don't make enough money on Social Security, or their combined income is not enough? Well, you're out of luck. This bill does not take care of you. Actually, it takes away from you. So now let's get to, so those are the two things that they're doing for seniors. Basically, the House gave seniors 4,000 tax deduction, and the Senate increased it to 6,000. The next thing in the bill that is remotely related to seniors is the no tax on tips and overtime. So if you are still working as a senior and you're getting tips, which I don't know how many seniors work in those kind of jobs that they're getting tips, but if you are, then no tax on tips allows you to deduct up to $25,000 in tip income. But here's a caveat. That expires after Trump's presidency is over. So the no tax on tips is only from 2025 to 2028. At the end of the Trump presidency, that is over. You can no longer deduct it. And then there's tax on overtime. No tax on overtime. You can deduct up to $12,500 in overtime and not get any taxation on it. So those are the two things that remotely put money in the pocket of seniors. And I don't know how many seniors are, if you're continuing to work and you're working in jobs that give you overtime, then that applies to you. If you're working in jobs that give you tips, that applies to you. But beyond that, the only thing in the bill that really helps seniors is the tax deduction, the 6,000 tax deduction, that up to $75,000 in income if you file by yourself, and up to $150,000 if you file as a couple. But if you don't file taxes at all, you don't make enough money to file Social Security tax, federal taxes on your Social Security benefits, this bill does nothing for you. I want to be clear on that. That is why it's important to continue to fight this, because it's going back to the House. And as I said, it almost did not pass the Senate. If Lisa Murkowski had stood her ground and not taken that sweet deal that they offered to Alaska for her to pretty much get her vote, this bill would have failed in the Senate and then would have been back to the drawing board. But here we are. It passed the Senate, so now it's going back to the House. They want to pass it before July 4th, which is a few days from now. So if you want to make your voice heard, call your congressperson. Call them and let them know that this is a travesty and they need to say no, because this is going to take from people that already are struggling and give it to people who really do not need it. And so that is where we are. And I'm going to share with you some data to highlight how serious this problem is and how it's going to affect seniors especially. So let's get to Medicare and Medicaid. Well, this bill is going to gut Medicaid. And here's what it looks like for states that are going to lose a lot of money. But first, let me show you this chart that highlights where the money is being taken from. So the chart that you see on the screen is showing the first one is the Trump tax extension. Let me take that thing from the screen so that we can maybe be able to see. Give me a second. Let's see. Okay, good. So now you can see that it's a 10-year cost, and you have tax cut extension. That means that they're extending the Trump tax cuts. That alone, extending the Trump 2017 tax cut and making them permanent, or at least for another 10 years, is going to cost about $4.5 trillion. And so they needed to find the money from somewhere, and they cannot find the money in the entire federal budget because there is not enough money for them to cut in the federal budget in order to accommodate this tax cut extension. And then there are other provisions they want to extend and temporary tax cuts, and they're putting some money in defense. They're putting a lot of money in Homeland Security, in ICE, and all these other facilities. And so here is where they are taking the money from. They took almost $1 trillion from Medicaid. And then they took some money from green energy and environment. They took some money from student loans. And then they took a lot of money from food stamps and other health care. So you can see the money is largely coming from people who really need it, low income and middle class families. That is where the money is coming from. But they are only getting about $1.3 trillion or $1.5 trillion. So where is the other money coming from to finance this? It is debt. So they are borrowing money and adding to the debt. They are borrowing $5 trillion more. So they're going to raise the debt limit by $5 trillion in order to accommodate tax cut extension that overwhelmingly are going to the rich. And I did show you the graph that showed you who is getting the money, and it highlights that pretty much the money is going to the high income category, and the money is being taken away from the low income population in order to do that. And let me bring that graph up again so that you can see. So I shared this with you earlier that they took $1.3 trillion from Medicaid and SNAP. Well, that is the graph you just saw, because it highlighted that they took $1 trillion from Medicaid and then another, 300,000 from food stamps. And that is how they got the money that they are going to use to finance tax cuts for people over $500,000. And what's more, they don't have the entire money. So now they're going to go borrow money and add to the national debt in order to do this. Why am I explaining all this to you? Because I want to set the stage for now you can understand what I'm about to talk about regarding who is losing what. Because cutting $1 trillion from Medicaid has consequences. Cutting about $300 billion from food stamps, it means that people are going to lose benefits. So the question is, who is losing benefits? Well, let's take a look. These are the hardest hit states when it comes to the Medicaid loss. So 16 million people are going to lose Medicaid. And in the average state, 313,000 people are going to lose benefits. But there's more, because I'm going to show you how this impacts the states in a specific way. So there is a chart that we collected all the data and put it into a chart so that you can see. So here's what's happening. In states that are losing more than 200,000 people who are losing coverage in Medicaid and healthcare, Florida is going to lose 2.4 million. 2.4 million people are going to lose healthcare in Florida because of this bill. California, 1.9. Texas 1.9, New York 966, North Carolina 604,000. That is what Senator Tillis was talking about, and did not vote for this bill because he was appalled that 600,000 people are going to lose Medicaid in his state. But look at Florida, 2.4 million, Georgia, 788, Illinois, 460, Ohio, 436. And there's more. It gets worse. If you haven't seen your state yet, well, you probably are not in the top list, but a lot of states are losing a lot of benefits. Pennsylvania, 390, Michigan, 369, Arizona, 323, Tennessee, 313. Now, it is thunderstorm right here where I live. And so if the light goes out or the internet goes out, that's why I'm giving you fair warning. Hopefully it doesn't, but I wanted to let you know because it is scary outside. Anyway, so New Jersey 309, South Carolina 284, Washington 268, and so on. The point is that a lot of people are going to lose benefits as a result of this. And I want to show you the mindset that some of these senators have. Excuse me. So the senator from Kentucky, the former majority leader, Mitch McConnell, who was told that a lot of people in his state are going to lose benefits, Medicaid and food stamps. This is what he had to say. They will get over it. That is what Mitch McConnell said. This is on record. You can Google it for yourself. And it gets worse because then the senator from Iowa, this is what she said. When she was told that a lot of people are going to die prematurely as a result of the Medicaid cuts, she says, well, we all are going to die. So there's a level of, how do I say this? There's a level of lack of empathy and to what they are doing and how it's going to affect people who need the help the most and have benefits being taken away from them. Now, let's talk about SNAP, food stamps. You saw the data and you saw that they've taken a big chunk of money from food stamps. But what does that do? Well, they keep saying that they are not taking benefits away from anybody. But what they're doing is that they are going to frustrate you with paperwork. So what they're doing now is that they're using SNAP error rates to kick people off, to make it difficult for states to be able to fund the program. So if you are a state and your error rate goes up, then you owe the federal government money. And if you cannot pay it, then the federal government is going to then force you to either cut benefits or stop the program. So under the bill, a state will have to pay a percentage of food stamps benefit based on the SNAP error rate. So error rate is a data point that the government looks at to see if the state is running the food stamp program efficiently. So if you are overpaying people, you're giving people more food stamps than they deserve because you are not, for whatever reason, or giving people less food stamps than they deserve, that is considered as part of the error rate. And so what they're doing is that now the federal government is saying, if your error rate is above a certain limit, we are going to want our money back. And if you cannot pay it back, then we are going to force you to cut benefits or to, have to stop the program. So for example, North Carolina would have to pay 15% of food benefits based on its 2024 error rate, a projected $438 million. Alabama will have to pay $172 million. Ohio will be on track for $316 million. And if states cannot pay this, then they have to make a hard decision whether they are going to continue the food stamps program. So my point is, this is not over. This fight is not over. If you are horrified, as I am, about what's happening with these cuts and how they are taking money from the middle class and the low income population to finance tax cuts that disproportionately benefits the rich, then you can make your voice heard to the House. The bill is going to the House. You can call today. Call your senator, your congressperson, your congressman or woman, and let them know that when the bill comes back to the House, they need to vote no or make drastic changes to it so that it goes back to the Senate. But if the House votes on the bill as is, seniors are going to be in a lot of pain. And let me give you some data to help you think through it. When we talk about Medicaid, you may think that you're a senior citizen, you only care about Medicare, but 62% of nursing home and assisted living bills are paid for by Medicaid, not Medicare. Medicare does not cover long-term care. So it is Medicaid. If you don't have enough money and you need assisted living or nursing home facility, you depend on Medicaid. So if you don't care about cuts to Medicaid today, tomorrow you may be in a situation where you need the government to help cover your healthcare costs and you're out of luck. The second thing is that 30% of seniors on Medicare are also on Medicaid because they don't make enough money and cannot afford their Medicare Part B premiums. And so they need Medicaid to pay for their Medicare premiums and out-of-pocket costs. Remember, Medicare does not cover prescription drugs, vision, dental, hearing. So if you're low income and you need those services and you can't afford it, you get on Medicaid to help you afford them. So cuts to Medicaid affect seniors even on Medicare, because if you can't afford your Medicare Part B premium, what happens? And then the third place why you should care about Medicaid is that a lot of cancer treatment for low-income families and households are paid for by Medicaid. And nearly 2 million people who are in post-cancer recovery, they have their bills paid for by Medicaid. And if you know how expensive that is for low-income families, that is a real big deal. And so my point is that if you're a senior citizen and you're looking at this and you think, well, this doesn't affect me, it may affect somebody you know, somebody in your family, somebody in your community. And so your voice matters here. And so I think that I don't want to, this is not over. They say they want to pass it before July 4th. Let's wait and see what happens. This is not over yet, but I think that there is something that we can still do. So what can be done? Well, first, they can throw back the no taxes on Social Security back into it. Second, they can pass the Social Security Expansion Act that gives seniors a $200 increase right away. Right away, we're not talking about next year. We're not talking about another promise for the future after the midterm elections. We're saying put it in this bill, put the Social Security Expansion Act in this bill so that seniors can get a $200 increase right away. And then 3, they can also put the Social Security 2100 Act. These are all bills that has been around. The 2100 Act will lift a lot of seniors out of poverty by increasing the minimum Social Security benefit to 125% of the federal poverty level, which will bring your minimum benefit from $900 to $1,660. Those three things can go a long way in helping seniors. So make sure that you're calling. And before I leave you, because the storm is going crazy here, so I'm going to wrap up soon. But I want to talk about Medicare for a second. We have our partner, Chapter Medicare, that we've been working with. And I know a lot of you guys are familiar with this. But if you're turning 65 or you're in a Medicare plan that you're not happy with, this is your biggest opportunity to switch to a better plan. There are 24,000 Medicare plans out there, and That is the reason why 90% of all seniors are in the wrong Medicare plan, because you have to pick the plan that is best for you. And 300,000 out of pocket cost is how much seniors spend over their lifetime in out of pocket Medicare costs. So it does matter what plan you get. Well, our partner chapter, their whole mission is to make Medicare simple so that you can understand your options, choose the best plan for you, and be able to get the most out of your Medicare plan. And so when you call them, these guys really, the reason why we're working with them is that, number one, they did not pay their agents to push specific plans. They are the only organization that have access to all 24,000 Medicare plans, so they can see what is in your local area, and they can also save you $1,100 a year. And so when you call that toll-free number, 539-205-2147, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be talking to real people. These are the people directly from their website that you're going to be talking to. And as I mentioned, these agents are not being paid to push specific plans. They are being paid to help you get into the best Medicare plan for you. And when you call them, here's what they're going to do. They will walk you through every Medicare option available to you, including detailed information about which doctors, specialists, prescription drugs, hospitals that are covered, and then help you compare that plan to traditional Medicare. And so, guys, these guys are the real deal. I've been doing this for 15 years. We've never partnered with a Medicare partner until now because we know and vetted these guys, and everyone we've sent to them has had a pleasant experience. So the service is free to you, but there may be a small window for you to switch to a better plan. And if you're turning 65 and you are overwhelmed by all the plans out there, call them. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, a lot of 5-star reviews, and they'll be able to get you into a better Medicare plan. So you can go into the description to this video. I'm also going to pin it to the comment section so that you can fill out their form. If you don't want to call them, fill out the form. It's very easy. And then they'll reach out to you and explore the best Medicare options that are available to you in your local area. So guys, I am going to be back tomorrow with another live because I want to stay on this topic. As the bill moves back to the House, I want to bring you up to speed on what's going to happen, what changes are being made or anticipated to be made. And I want to stay on top of it to make sure that the things that we know would benefit seniors are going to be put in that bill. So keep calling, call your congressperson and let them know you know the bill is coming back to the House and they need to vote no unless they are putting in benefits that are going to help seniors, and also making sure that the cuts to Medicaid and food stamps are not as draconian that are going to hurt a lot of people. So until I see you tomorrow, if you like what you heard, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'm glad you joined me today. It is crazy storming out here, so I'm going to end the live, but I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.